My ribs are broken, but my parents aren't calling 911. Instead, they took my phone and my car keys. My brother, Jackson, the town's golden boy, is the one who attacked me, and my family's only concern right now is the cover-up. They told me I just needed to calm down. But what they were really doing was making me a prisoner in my own home, all to protect his reputation. Where are you guys watching from? Let me know your city in the comments. And if you've ever been silenced or made to feel small by your own family, hit that subscribe button, because escaping that room was just the beginning of my story. My name is Ella, 26 years old, and I'm speaking to you now because I need someone to know what happened last night. My ribs are broken, a searing electric pain shooting through my chest with every shallow breath I take. But my parents didn't call 911. Instead, they stood in the hallway just outside my bedroom door, while my father quietly confiscated my phone and my car keys. A few hours earlier, my older brother, Jackson, our town's golden boy, the former star quarterback, slammed me against the granite kitchen island in a drunken rage. Now, my family's only concern wasn't my potential punctured lung. It was protecting his flawless reputation. "You just need to rest and think clearly, honey," my mother whispered through the door, her voice laced with false concern, as if I were a hysterical child, not the victim of a violent assault. In that moment, they weren't just my family anymore. They had become my jailers. The physical pain was blinding, but the agony of their betrayal was 1,000 times worse. They were willing to sacrifice my safety, my health, my freedom, all for the sake of maintaining a perfect public image. It's a terrifying thing to realize. The people meant to protect you are the ones you need protection from. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and if you've ever felt trapped by family expectations, just type, "I understand," so I know I'm not the only one. Because escaping that room was just the beginning of my fight. Before I tell you how I got out of that room, you need to understand the town where I grew up. We lived in a wealthy, sprawling suburb of Dallas, Texas, the kind of place where Friday night high school football is a religion, and your family's name is the most valuable currency you own. My father, Richard, built a construction empire from the ground up, and my mother, Catherine, chaired every important charity gala. We weren't just a family. We were the Harris family, a local brand synonymous with success and community leadership. And the star product of that brand was my older brother, Jackson. He wasn't just on the football team. He was the all-state star quarterback, the golden boy who could do no wrong. His swagger was mistaken for confidence, his arrogance for ambition. I was the quiet one, the artist. My world was filled with sketchbooks and watercolor paints, passions that didn't earn trophies or get your name in the Dallas Morning News. I remember the year I won a prestigious state-level award for a painting. That same week, Jackson threw a game-winning touchdown. My award got a polite nod at dinner. His victory was celebrated with a party for half the town. It's a painful thing to feel invisible in your own family, to have your light constantly dimmed to make someone else's shine brighter. If you've ever felt like the supporting character in your own family's story, just type, "I see you," in the comments. Let's acknowledge each other right now, because that feeling of being second best, of being less important, became the foundation for the nightmare that was to come. This dynamic wasn't just a feeling, it became the unwritten, unbreakable rule of our household. The family's resources, both emotional and financial, were to be funneled towards Jackson's success. My role was to be stable, respectable, and most importantly, to never cause a problem that might tarnish his golden reputation. This rule was never clearer than when it came time for college. My high school art teacher, a wonderful woman named Mrs. Albright, believed I had real talent. She helped me build a portfolio, and against all odds, I was accepted into the Rhode Island School of Design, one out of the best art schools in the country. It was the proudest, most validating moment of my life. I remember showing the acceptance letter to my parents over dinner. My father, Richard, glanced at it and let out a short, dismissive laugh. An art degree, Ella? That's a $400,000 hobby, not a career. What would people at the club say? My mother, Catherine, was even more direct. The daughter of Richard Harris cannot be a struggling artist. It's unseemly. You'll enroll in the pre-law program at SMU. A lawyer in the family brings respect. Their reasoning was unspoken but clear. Jackson was the high-risk, high-reward star. My job was to be the safe, respectable investment that solidified the family's image, a perfect counterpart to his potential volatility. So, I packed away my paints and my portfolio. I turned down my dream and became the daughter they needed me to be, another perfect brick in the fortress they were building around my brother. I told myself I was being practical, but I knew deep down I was suffocating. The night it all shattered, we had just returned from the annual Dallas Children's Hospital Gala. It was the biggest social event of the year, and my brother Jackson was the guest of honor, having made a massive donation on behalf of our family's company. We were the perfect family, posing for the cameras, a living testament to success and philanthropy. Back at home, the performance continued. My parents were glowing, and Jackson, flushed with whiskey and adoration, was holding court in our massive kitchen. I was trying to make conversation with his new girlfriend, Ashley, trying to be the supportive sister my parents expected me to be. I innocently mentioned something I'd heard through the grapevine. I'm so glad those rumors about the Riverwalk project being in trouble were just gossip, I said, genuinely trying to praise him. It's amazing how you turned it all around. But Jackson's smile vanished. He had been hiding the project's financial troubles. In his drunken state, he heard my compliment as an accusation. "You keep your mouth shut about my business," he snarled, his voice low and menacing. Before I could explain, he shoved me. It wasn't a sibling push. It was a violent, deliberate act of rage, with all of his former quarterback's strength behind it. My world exploded in a starburst of agony as my back slammed into the sharp edge of the granite island. I heard a sickening crack, and then I was on the cold tile floor, gasping, unable to breathe. 1 minute, we were a family celebrating. The next, I was a victim in my own kitchen. That's the terrifying thing about abuse. It hides behind a normal face. If you've ever seen that mask slip and witnessed a side of someone that truly scared you, just type a yes in the comments. Because seeing the real Jackson that night was only the beginning of the horror. The sound of my body hitting the floor brought my parents running. My mother, Catherine, let out a sharp, horrified gasp. My father's face was a stony mask of controlled fury. But their first move wasn't towards me. The daughter crumpled on the floor in agony. It was towards Jackson. My father grabbed his arm. "Go to your room. Now," he hissed. "And don't you say a word to anyone." My mother finally knelt beside me, but her touch was clinical. Her concern focused on the optics, not my injury. "We can't have a scene, Ella," she whispered urgently. They helped me limp to my bedroom, the pain so blinding I could barely see. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, my only thought to call for help, but my father's hand closed over mine. taking it from me. "No," he said, his voice flat and final. "We will handle this as a family." He then calmly asked for my car keys. When I stared at him in disbelief, he simply took them from my purse. "You're just overwrought, darling," my mother said, trying to sound soothing. "You just need to rest here, quietly, until we can all think clearly. No doctors, no police. We can't risk a scandal, not after the gala tonight." I watched them close my bedroom door, and I heard the faint, sickening click of the lock. My ribs were broken, and I was a prisoner in my own home. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was a public relations crisis that needed to be contained. The beautiful house I grew up in had become a gilded cage, and I was trapped inside with the monster they had created. I spent the next few hours propped up on my pillows, every breath a fresh, searing wave of agony. The initial shock wore off, replaced by a terrifying clarity. They were not going to help me. My parents were willing to let me suffer to protect my brother. If I wanted to survive, I had to snib it myself. My mind raced, searching for an escape. They had taken my phone and my laptop, but they'd forgotten about the old, half-broken iPad I kept in my desk drawer for sketching. The battery was at 5%, but it was enough. With trembling, painful movements, I pulled it out and sent a single, desperate message to my best friend, Maya. "Jackson hurt me. Ribs are broken. Parents have my phone and keys. I'm trapped." Her reply came back in seconds. "I'm on my way. Be ready at 2 a.m. We quickly hatched a plan. She would park her car down the street, out of sight. I would have to get out of the house on my own. The lock on my bedroom door was old. I knew I could jimmy it open with a bobby pin. The real challenge would be the staircase, the one that groaned and creaked with every step. At 2 a.m., fueled by a dangerous mix of pain and adrenaline, I began my escape. The click of my lock sounded like a gunshot in the silent house. I moved through the darkness, past my parents' room, past Jackson's, holding my breath, my entire body screaming in protest with each careful step. When I finally slipped out the back door into the humid Texas night and saw the dim glow of Maya's headlights, a wave of relief so powerful it almost buckled my knees washed over me. I wasn't a prisoner anymore. Maya helped me into the emergency room of Dallas Presbyterian Hospital. The bright, sterile lights, a shocking contrast to the suffocating darkness of my parents' house. After a triage nurse took one look at me, I was rushed to an examination room. That's when I met Dr. Anya Sharma. She was calm and professional, with intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through the story I had rehearsed in the car. "So Ella," she began, looking at my chart, "it says here you had a fall. Can you tell me what happened?" The lie came out automatically, a reflex born from a lifetime of protecting my family. I was clumsy. I tripped and fell down the stairs. Dr. Sharma just nodded, her expression unreadable, as she began her gentle examination. When she saw the massive dark bruise blooming across my back, she paused. "That must have been a nasty fall," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "But the pattern of this bruising, it's inconsistent with a tumble down the stairs. It's concentrated, almost like an impression." Her eyes met mine. "Ella," she said softly, "as a physician in this state, I am a mandatory reporter. That means I am legally required to report suspected cases of assault to the authorities." Her words weren't an accusation. They were an offer, a lifeline. For the first time, someone wasn't telling me to be quiet. They were giving me permission to speak my truth. And the dam just broke. The whole story came pouring out of me in a torrent of tears and pain. The shove, My parents' cover-up, the imprisonment. She listened without a single word of judgment. It's incredible how one person truly believing you can change everything, isn't it? If you've ever had a moment where an outsider, a teacher, a doctor, a friend saw your truth when your own family wouldn't, please share that experience in the comments. Because Dr. Sharma's belief didn't just validate my pain, it set in motion a chain of events that would burn my old life to the ground. True to her word, Dr. Sharma made the call. While an X-ray technician confirmed I had 3 fractured ribs, one of them displaced, Dr. Sharma was in her office, filing an official report with the Dallas Police Department. The gears of justice, which my parents had tried so desperately to jam, began to turn. The consequences were immediate. I was still in my hospital bed, waiting for discharge papers, when the first call came through on Maya's phone. It was my mother. Her voice was not the soft, manipulative whisper from the night before. It was a raw, venomous shriek. "What have you done?" she screamed, the sound distorted by the phone's speaker. "The police just called your father. They're asking questions about Jackson. How could you do this to your own brother? To this family?" There was no concern for my health, no asking about my diagnosis. Her only fear was that their perfect secret was out. My father called next. His tone was different, but somehow more terrifying. Cold, controlled, and dripping with menace. "You have made a catastrophic error in judgment, Ella," he said, his voice dangerously low. "You have brought outsiders into a private family matter. You have no idea the damage you have caused. A private family matter. 3 broken ribs were a private matter. A violent assault was a misunderstanding." It was in that moment I truly understood. They weren't just covering for Jackson's actions. They were trying to erase my reality, to gaslight me into believing that my pain was less important than their reputation. They weren't angry that he had hurt me. They were furious that I had told someone. My parents' greatest fear was never for my physical safety. It was for their public reputation. And in a gossipy high-society suburb of Dallas, a secret involving the police and the town's most prominent family has an extremely short shelf life. It took less than 48 hours. A small anonymous blurb in the police blotter section of the local paper mentioned an incident under investigation at our address. That was all it took. By the next afternoon, a local news blogger had connected the dots, and the headline was brutal. "Former star quarterback Jackson Harris, heir to Harris Construction, investigated for domestic assault." The fallout was immediate and, for them, catastrophic. The perfect family brand my parents had spent a lifetime curating was shattered overnight. My mother's phone went silent. The invitations to charity luncheons suddenly stopped. My father faced pointed questions from his partners at the firm. And Jackson, for the first time in his charmed life, faced a real consequence his parents couldn't shield him from. The developers of his high-profile Riverwalk project immediately suspended his involvement pending the outcome of the investigation. The golden boy was publicly tarnished. It was chaos, and a part of me felt a strange, detached sorrow watching their world burn. Their perfect image was a lie, built on my silence. It's a heavy burden, being the one who speaks the truth that shatters a family's illusion. If you've ever had to be that person, the one who broke the unspoken rule of silence, just type, "I spoke up," in the comments. You are some of the bravest people I know. With their perfect reputation in flames and Jackson's future hanging by a thread, my father did what he always does in a crisis. He tried to broker a deal. He asked me to meet him at his downtown Dallas office, not as a father speaking to a daughter, but as a CEO addressing a problem. He didn't yell or plead. He sat behind his massive mahogany desk, a battlefield where he'd won countless negotiations, and laid out his terms with cold corporate precision. "This has gone on long enough, Ella," he began, his voice devoid of any warmth. "The damage to our family's name, to Jackson's career, it's substantial, but it can be repaired. There is a way out of this for all of us." I waited in silence as he leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. "Here is the deal," he said. "You will go to the police and you will recant your statement. You will tell them you were emotional, that you overreacted, and that the entire incident was a simple misunderstanding. You will say it was an accident, and you want to drop all charges. You do that, and we can begin to put this family back together." "And if I don't?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. His face hardened. "If you don't," he said, his voice as cold as steel, "then you are no longer my daughter. You will be removed from the family trust and cut out of the will. You will be completely and utterly on your own. So you have a choice, your brother's future or no future with this family." He expected me to crumble. But looking at him, I realized he wasn't offering me a family. He was offering me a prison sentence of silence. "I can't do that, Dad," I said quietly. He simply nodded and turned back to his paperwork. The negotiation was over. I walked out of my father's gleaming office tower and into the blinding Texas sun feeling like a ghost. I had a name and a career, but I no longer had a family. The grief was immense, but underneath it was a strange, terrifying sense of freedom. For the first time in my life, there was no one left to please, no one's expectations to manage but my own. In the weeks that followed, I learned what family really meant. It wasn't about blood. It was about who shows up. My friend Maya was my rock, bringing over takeout and refusing to let me isolate myself. Dr. Sharma, the ER doctor who reported the assault, became an unexpected mentor, connecting me with a support group for survivors of family abuse. Sitting in a circle of strangers who understood my pain without me having to over-explain it was the most profoundly healing experience of my life. Then, a surprising call came from my mother's estranged sister, my Aunt Barbara. "I heard what happened, Ella," she said, her voice warm with an empathy I had never received from my own mother. "I'm not surprised. I just want you to know I believe you." She told me she'd been cut off from the family years ago for trying to confront my parents about their blatant favoritism toward Jackson. Finding her was like discovering a branch of my family tree that wasn't poisoned. With this new chosen family, I began the real work of healing. I learned about narcissistic family systems, about the roles of the golden child, and the scapegoat. I finally had a name for the invisible cage I had lived in my entire life, and I finally understood it was never, ever my fault. The legal process was a marathon, not a sprint. In the end, faced with the irrefutable medical evidence, Jackson took a plea deal. He was convicted of misdemeanor assault, sentenced to a year of probation, and ordered into mandatory anger management counseling. It wasn't prison, but for the golden boy who had never faced a single consequence, it was a public fall from grace. As for me, the real healing began when I finally let go of the life they wanted for me. I didn't go back to law school. I went to an art supply store. I bought a new set of watercolors, the best I could afford, and I started to paint again. The art that poured out of me wasn't pretty, but it was honest. It was my truth, in vibrant, angry, and hopeful colors. Today, I'm not just painting for myself. I volunteer at a local women's shelter, running art therapy workshops for other survivors. I help them use color and creativity to process the pain that words often can't reach. I took the very passion my family dismissed as a hobby and turned it into a tool for healing, for both myself and others. And that's the ultimate lesson. You cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick. True family, whether it's the one you're born into or the one you build, doesn't ask you to shrink to fit their image. It gives you the space to grow into your own. Your worth is not defined by the role they assigned you. You are the architect of your own life. If this story gave you a sliver of hope or the courage to start rebuilding, please hit that subscribe button. Let's build a community that celebrates second chances, especially the ones we give ourselves. Thank you for listening.